Hi everyone, this is Katie with Empowering Astrology, and this is take two. I don't know why the um, technology wasn't quite working a few moments ago when we started live, but let's do this again. I have a Gemini moon. I'm used to doing things twice. So this is your weekly check-in with the astrology of September 9th through the 15th. So we're doing this a little weekly. I think it's nice to have a little bit of a more of an intimate chat and check in about the astrology. And what I was beginning to say before we got cut off is that you may be watching this live, you may be watching the replay on Facebook, or you may be watching the replay also on YouTube. So if you follow me on YouTube, or even if you don't, please do follow me on YouTube, because you can also get subscription updates. And it is my let's say my plan to eventually do more video content and put it over on YouTube. But for now, let's have this little weekly check-in. So if you're joining me live, I know my mom is joining me live. Hi, Mom. Hello from Paris. So, I do love Paris. Let me know how it's going. How are you guys doing? We are getting into the midpoint of Virgo season, which means, Virgo is a time when we get back to reality. It's an earth sign. So Virgo is about planning for the future. This is a little bit of a technical point for those who do some, study astrology. Virgo actually has kind of a lot in common with Aquarius, which maybe you wouldn't realize on paper. But Virgo is what's called sixth house is Aquarius. So Virgo actually gets, this idea of looking towards the future. Aquarius, systems, Aquarius, technology. These are things that Virgo actually really gravitate towards, but maybe it's always good to look at, if you're studying astrology, the house that the sign kind of corresponds with. Like Scorpio's eighth house is Gemini, which if you're a Scorpio, or and love a Scorpio, that actually gives you a little bit more of an insight to the sign of Scorpio. But we're in Virgo season, so we're planning for the future. We're getting our ducks in a row. We're looking at what needs to be done. It's a time of harvest. But as we go into this week, and yes, this week is very much about Earth, Virgo, reality, practicalities. It's also about the things we can't see, about compassion, about feeling, about emotion. And why is that? Well, as we start to get into the weekend, we're going to have a Pisces full moon. This Pisces full moon will be at 21 degrees of Pisces, and it will be at 12:33 a.m. Here in New York, which means that will be the 13th of September in Los Angeles, but also the 14th in Europe, and also Australia and New Zealand. Hi, Debbie. So when, Virgo can be so much about what's in front of it and what it can feel and what it can touch. But then you have what's called its polarity sign, the sign that's opposite. Pisces is the things you can't touch. It's the things that you don't know for, it's more of the, let's say, the subjective reality versus Virgo's objective reality. So, this week I kind of did when I was redoing my notes for this live feed, which you can see in the links and the information. I had to kind of like retype what I wrote before, which is actually a little bit different. But this idea that we are spanning heaven and earth this week, Pisces being the last sign of the zodiac, the 12th sign of the zodiac, takes us out of life. It brings us into the liminal space between reality and non-reality, between the end of life and the beginning of life. Pisces being the sign that takes us right before into Aries. So, I'm going to say this, and that might be a little bit of a heavy statement. I am a Scorpio. Sometimes I say things like this, like it is a week of endings. This idea that a full moon in Pisces highlights this energy of letting go, endings. And this can actually be quite a positive thing, you know, whether, let's say I'm working with a client and they're really trying to finally release some really old stuff. And so Pisces is great for that. It, let's say, washes things away. It connects us with the energy of forgiveness, of compassion, of redemption. This idea that it all can be washed away. So we're going to be feeling maybe some heavy emotions start to bubble up as we get closer to this full moon on the 14th of September. You know, this is stuff, you know, think of a flood. Things that aren't weighed down just start to bubble up. And so we're starting to feel things bubble up within us. So if you're, I know a lot of you are tired. You're like, when does this get better? When does this end? But you know, I've said this before. We're in this time in humanity where it's like we have to do our work. We have to confront ourselves. We have to dig into ourselves. And maybe I'm being a Scorpio right now, but I guess that's what I incarnated for, was to be a Scorpio. Oh, hello from Lisbon. I love Portugal. Yeah, let's have like our international check-ins. I'm not in Portugal right now. I was in April. But I do love that part of the world. So anyway, I'm getting off track. I have a Sagittarius stellium, so I'm always dreaming of travel in faraway, lovely places, especially if there's good food. So really check in with yourself this week. You know, when we start to feel things and we don't know where they're coming from, they don't seem to line up or match with, let's say, the situation that's going on. Like I have a neighbor that keeps playing music, and for some reason it's making me really like emotional, like in an agitated way. And so my personal work is to sit with myself and say, okay, why do I feel this way? Is it because there's a sense of boundaries being crossed or something I can't control, but it's bringing up something really deep within me? So we have a choice. If you're having something similar happen, like either you sit down with yourself and you really sit and you reflect, and then you question what you're feeling and maybe see what your subconscious or your unconscious is revealing about this emotion. Or you just say, I don't want to deal with it. And let's be honest, Pisces is escapism. So we need to really, let's say, check in on how we are escaping this week, because we can do one of two things. I said we can face what we need to face, which is what, you know, Virgo really does hold us. It kind of makes sure that our feet are planted on the ground, so that we can then do the work. So let's say you got 1 foot on planet Earth this week, but then you also got 1 foot in the cosmic ocean this week as well. So just make sure you're grounded, make sure you're balanced, and making sure that you're very conscious about the choices that you're making, because we just might want to flip on the television or pour a drink or do whatever it is that we normally do to escape. And this is no judgment, because I do it too, but this is my work and this is everybody else's work. It's like, how do we be present with ourselves and our emotions and our feelings? And maybe it's old resentments, maybe it's old hurts. I had a client who, she said, I felt like there was some untapped in anger. And she said somebody else that she'd worked with had felt the same thing from her. And I'm like, it's got to come out somehow. And she said, well, how? And you know, it's one of those things where you can't think emotion. You can't rationalize emotion. You can't say to yourself, okay, I'm ready to feel this. I mean, it is good to make that decision to do so, but then there's going to be crickets. You're like, okay, where's my anger? So we might feel extra triggered this week, because that's what happens. We get the little like button that gets pressed, and they're like, oh, now I feel my anger. Now I feel my sadness. Now I feel my whatever it is. So you might be a little triggered this week. Make sure you have a lot of TLC. Make sure you have a lot of support, whoever is part of your support. If you don't, maybe that's part of your full moon homework. How do you create more support in your life? This can be psychic support, emotional support, Pisces, and this could also be physical support. You know, the sun is still in Virgo right now. Also, we have Mars is still in Virgo as well. So it's still a time when we need to do work on projects, really tend to our health and our well-being. Mars in Virgo likes a lot of physical activity. It can be a little competitive as well. It's maybe not like Mars gets to be when it's in Aries, but it like needs an outlet for its projects. So I'm just going to check in with the chat. Hello, Marina. It's like everybody I know here. My mom's here. Marina's here. My Aunt Joan is here. Hello, everybody. It's a family thing going on right now. Angela says her south node is in Virgo. My north node's in Virgo, so I can, you know, definitely can get that. Embracing the good structure and time to keep track of what we're working on. You know, when you have your south node in Virgo, and not everybody's going to have their south node in Virgo, maybe this is a little bit of an intermediate point, you're learning to open up to Pisces. And so this is a season, you know, when the sun is in Virgo and the north node is in Pisces, and I think you'd have to be born in like the late 60s or early 50s to have, or even like 1988-ish to have your north node in Pisces. You need to learn to let go. You need to learn to surrender. You need to open, like Virgo south node is so good with the details. You give it a task, it's like innate. South node is innate. So wherever your south node is, it's deeply instinctual. So the north node in Pisces is like, you can't like think and do your way out of things. And sometimes life gets messy. Pisces is a messy sign. I mean this in like the best possible way. It's like art, it's emotions, it's feeling. Pisces is nonlinear. So if you have that north node in Pisces, you're really learning to open up, and even open up to spirituality. I'm just reading more comments. You know, hello from Australia. Always have a soft spot for Australia. So let's just do a quick trip around the zodiac so we know where this Pisces full moon is activating in this week. So again, for those that are just joining, the Pisces full moon is on the 14th of September, at least is here in New York City in the East Coast, at 12:33 a.m. That would be in the afternoon in London and Europe, and then further afield, obviously, in Australia and New Zealand. I cannot calculate time zones on the fly, so you'll have to forgive me. So a full moon is a decision point. It's a time of revelation, and it's time for seeing things for what they really are. And wrapped up in this Pisces full moon this week is these deeper questions of faith and meaning. Jupiter is making what's called a square to Neptune in September, and it's kind of bringing up this deep soul searching. What does this all mean? Do I still have faith? Faith in myself, faith in the world, faith that everything is going to be okay. And we might be struggling with that. And astrology is just telling us that it's time for this. It's time to really question what we believe in. And sometimes we can get disillusioned because something is not like we thought it would be. So I think it's really important this month not to lose hope, to really do what you need to do to take, like I said, take care of yourself, get what you need, talk it out, get support, because it's really pulling on some deeper emotions this week and next week as well. I'm just looking at the comments real quick. So, you know, Pisces does speak to spirituality. It does speak to mysticism and meditation and dreams. It's Pisces is water, but it's water it's like universal water. It's like the waters of the soul. It's, Cancer being the first water sign, which is, mother, but then Pisces is like the cosmic mother. It's like the universal mother. So that's some of the energy that we're checking in this week. I know that, I was talking about faith, I was talking about meaning, and maybe we've had a really bumpy 2019 so far. We really could just use a hug. So how do you get in touch with this kind of universal mother energy, this universal nurturing, so that you can get what you need this week? So again, full moons, they put things in light. Maybe this is about you looking at your illusions, looking at issues of faith and meaning, and also maybe opening up to the energies of forgiveness and compassion, because there comes a point where we can't carry the things that we've been carrying anymore. We can't bring it with us, is often the phrase you hear in English. These things that we cannot bring with us, past death and into the next life. So it's like, what do we finally let go and kind of let Pisces, and even the planet Neptune, because this full moon will be conjunct Neptune, just wash away. So for my Aries and Aries rising people, this full moon is kind of highlighting a lot of the things that I was talking about previously, that this is a time of forgiveness, compassion, letting go, endings. I know that's a little bit of a word that might make you like, oh, endings, but endings can come in a lot of different ways. You can choose that, I'm not going to do XYZ anymore. It's a time for retreat. It's your time for recuperation. So if you're an Aries, make sure you're doing a lot of the, let's say, internal spiritual work right now, because this full moon is highlighting your blind spots, the things that you don't see, the things that come up in dreams. So do pay attention to your dreams. Actually, I dreamt of a tsunami last night, and I felt that I was like, okay, that's very, let's say tomorrow is what's called the sun opposition to Neptune. It happens every year. Not necessarily this time of year, but Neptune, water, Pisces, water. Anyway, so if you are a Taurus, this full moon is highlighting friendships, community. Who are your friends? Where are you in the world? What are your hopes and dreams and wishes? Have you become a little disillusioned? Who do you need to be the support in your life? I think for Taurus, with Pisces being in this part of your chart, you are somebody that does, let's say, maybe in your heart of hearts, you do want to help people. So it's like, how do you help and serve your community at this time? And maybe you need to forgive or let go of some old hurts in regards to friendships. Moving on to Gemini. So this full moon is highlighting, let's see, Aries, Gemini, Pisces, career. Sorry, to like kind of dance backwards and in heels at the same time. So Gemini, this is actually highlighting your career sign. So this is one of the times each year where career, or your, let's say, your public life, or your ambitions, or how people see you, is in the spotlight. So you may have some decisions to make about the direction you want to take your life in. This may include hearing about a job that you are been applying to, or making a job switch, or just needing, I think with this might plug into a much longer story about Gemini. How do you do something in the world that your heart is truly in? So that's something to think about and to kind of reflect on. But this is a time of career for you. And maybe even these issues of faith and meaning are a bit more prominent than they are with the other signs. Moving on to Taurus, not Taurus, Cancer. Moving on to Cancer, this is highlighting one of your travel signs. So this full moon might coincide with wanting to, let's say, go travel the world. Maybe you're going to go to Lisbon and have pastries, which is what I would do. Or you are looking into a trip abroad or a long distance journey, or maybe you're focusing on school. So this might be a time when you're making some decisions about higher education or going back to school. But Cancer, this also talks about like bigger things about how you see the world and how you see yourself. This idea that that part of your chart really shapes what you believe in. And maybe with some of the things that are happening with the astrology of this full moon, you're kind of re-questioning what reality is and what you believe in. So that's something to keep in mind, Cancer. Moving along to Leo. Leo, this full moon is highlighting what I like to call like your deepest self, your most hidden self. Pisces for you is a sign that touches on your psyche. It touches on the things that are in the deepest corner recesses of your heart and your soul. So it might be a time when you're feeling extra sensitive. It might be a time when you are needing to, maybe let's say, work with a counselor or work with a therapist, somebody that's going to help guide you through what you're feeling. Similarly, maybe some really old stuff is coming up. And since Neptune is in the mix, how do you forgive and let go? How do you, whether it's something from the past, something from childhood, something that, let's say, speaks to a fear, a deeply rooted fear, how do you let it go and let it wash away? Neptune. This full moon for Leo, it also does talk about more practical matters like finance, assets, money, like this idea of wealth, what, the estate you have. But it is a bit of a, let's say, more of an emotional, squishy moon for you, Leo. So moving on to Virgo, Pisces is your relationship sign, Virgo. So this is the natural time in the year when the spotlight is on other people. So you are getting your push to connect with people. This can even include a partnership. Maybe you are in a relationship and you have to look at something. Full moons, they put things in the light. And I think with Neptune involved, sorry, I just totally saw the comment about the pastel de nata. Yeah, I do love pastel de natas. Sorry. But yes, Virgo, this is highlighting a deeper story around, let's say, having to make some sacrifices for relationships. You do have Neptune in your 7th house, and you've had it in your relationship sign, your 7th sign, since 2011, 2012. And you're having to learn to make the balance between your wants, your needs, your desires, especially with Mars in Virgo right now, but also the wants and the needs and desires of a partner, whether it's somebody that's a strong one-on-one connection in your life, or who is somebody who is let's say, a mate or an intimate connection. Do make sure you're seeing reality and seeing through your illusions in relationships. Neptune can sometimes be like that funhouse mirror where things are a little distorted. We're not quite seeing things correctly, and maybe we're doing a lot of projection onto a partner. But with Neptune, it's not always the first stop in the story, but ultimately there can be a deeper story around compassion and forgiveness. So moving on to Libra. So this is highlighting your health and wellness sign. So Pisces for you, I mean, this is a time when you're needing to look at how you are taking care of your daily life. When you have Pisces as this part of your chart, sometimes you have to make sure you're not kind of getting caught in the fantasy and illusion of day-to-day life. Ask yourself, how are you showing up, Libra? You can certainly create a life and create a day-to-day life that is very beautiful and very ethereal, but you still need to have those feet on the ground. That said, this full moon might highlight work, projects, needing to, let's say, take care of your physical health as well as your emotional health right now. Something with Neptune making what's called a long transit to this part of your chart. I mean, it will be in this part of your chart until 2026. Just be a little careful about sensitivities, like environmental sensitivities, whether food allergies or sensitivity to chemicals, because sometimes I've just noticed when Neptune's in that part of the chart, you get very sensitive to the environment. So just make sure your environment is very clean, very pure, very quiet and calming. So maybe you're kind of doing some work on the home with this full moon. Scorpio, this full moon highlights romance. It also highlights creativity and being yourself. So this is the time of the year when you get to, let's say, let your hair down, kick up your heels, really show the world and show others your personality. This, of course, can speak to romance, and maybe you've been doing a lot of deeper work over the years with Neptune there to really let go of some things in order to, let's say, let yourself be seen more, or even let yourself connect romantically to somebody else. But in all, this is a time, let's say with this full moon, to really enjoy life. That's what that part of the chart is for you. Moving to Sagittarius, this full moon highlights what's called the base of your chart, the foundation of your chart. And just like, let's say, a plant with a strong root, you too need a strong root in your life. So this is a time when you need to tend to your roots, tend to your foundation. Are you getting what you need? Maybe there's some old family stuff that needs to be, let's say, cleared and released so that you can get the nourishment and the emotional support that you need. This full moon does highlight home and family, so those might be strong themes around the full moon. Also, this might be a time when you are naturally thinking about making a move. Just kind of putting that out there in case you are a Sag and making a move. But this can be something as simple as you're just making a lot of changes in the home. I'm Sag rising, and I just realized that I was been painting my living room. So hey, like tending to the nest, Sagittarius rising. If you are a Capricorn, this is highlighting voice. How do you say what you need to say? How do you speak up? How do you think? How do you process information? I think not everybody realizes that Capricorn is a lot more intuitive than it's given credit for. So this might be a very intuitive full moon for you, Capricorn. Capricorn, this has been a hard year for you. I've said this in previous live videos. I think Gemini and Capricorn have been getting things been a little bit hard. So that said, Capricorn, try to get a little still and quiet around this full moon and see what intuitive messages that you get. That's something that can help you better understand what you're going through, maybe see things from a different perspective, or let go of something that will allow you to, let's say, make a new choice. Because that part of your chart with that full moon also does speak to choices. It speaks to learning and it speaks to travel. So you might be doing some travel with this full moon. You might even be thinking about taking some classes. Aquarius, starting to get towards the end of the zodiac. So Aquarius, this full moon highlights your money sign, at least one of your money signs. So this is a full moon to really think about what you own, what you need to own, what you want to own, and let's say what you're, either how you're earning a living or what you're spending your money on. It's more of a, let's say, practical full moon. But Pisces in this part of your chart, Pisces is such a, let's say, a spiritual sign, and this is about money and ownership. So maybe looking at some themes for you about, maybe something that needs to be healed or let go around value, what you own. Maybe you're doing some clearing out with this full moon. Maybe you're donating things old things that you own to other people. And maybe you're realizing that you don't need what you thought you needed with this full moon. But it is a time when you're having to look at, let's say, your material life and how that lines up with your spiritual needs and your spiritual desires. Last but not least, Pisces. So this full moon puts you in the spotlight. So this is a time in the year when it's naturally eyes are on you. You're feeling a bit kind of, taking a step forward, going into the next 6 months, the months that will take you to your birthday. You're entering the second half of your personal year. So it's a time to check in with yourself. It's a time to, let's say, take some, like I said, steps forward, to take leadership, take controls. But like I said, with the full moon, you're in the spotlight. So enjoy the spotlight right now. I know it's been a little bit of a, maybe some things with the Jupiter square Neptune this year have pulled on these themes of faith for you. So just make sure you're doing what you do best, Pisces. Just take some time to meditate and to reflect, to listen to your intuition, listen to your higher self, and to see what internal guidance you get. And so that sort of personal GPS is, this is your time to, let's say, fine tune it. So we're starting to come to the end of our, let's say, weekly check-in. This, as I was saying, this is take 2 because I think I got about a minute and a half into my first video and Facebook just went like poof. So here we go. Thank you all for joining me, especially my various family members and people who are family friends who are also watching me. So hi, nice to see you. And also people who are very close to me are also on this live feed. So I love you. Thank you all. It's always an honor and a pleasure to be able to connect with you in this intimate environment and, let's say, talk about the astrology this week. So, I do have a newsletter, so I do kind of give you a advanced look at the astrology this week. You can sign up for my newsletter in the links for the show notes. You can always book a consultation with me, of course. The link is also in the show notes. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Instagram. Please follow me there. And if you are on YouTube and want to follow me on YouTube, I am reposting these videos on YouTube. So, last but not least, I'm doing a webinar on Saturn. I know I've spent this whole time talking about Neptune and I forgot to talk about Saturn. And Saturn is a big player this week. It's also a big player into next week when it turns direct on September 18th. So in honor of Saturn, a planet that is very much about structure and reality and doing the things that we need to do and learning the lessons that we need to learn, I'm doing a webinar on September 17th at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. That will be 2:30, that might not be right. No, I think it's like 3:30 p.m. Los Angeles. I do have the times. It's in the morning for Australia and New Zealand. I do have the times listed. That is also linked in my show notes, but I'm kind of a Saturn fangirl. I like to gush about Saturn because I think it's a really accessible planet to understand. And I think it gives you the most aha moments about your chart and about yourself, because we all have a lesson, and sometimes multiple lessons, that we came here in this life to learn. And Saturn makes it very clear what they are. So I love teaching about Saturn. This webinar is called Saturn, or Facing Saturn, because we all have to face Saturn at certain points, certain key points in our life, and also face Saturn at certain times throughout the year. And these are big check-ins and sometimes little check-ins on how we are doing to learn the lessons that we said that we would learn in this lifetime. So I will be teaching about what Saturn means in your chart by sign, by house. I'll be talking about the Saturn return. So if you're 28, 29, and maybe even 30, maybe even 58, the second Saturn return, I'll be teaching about that. And I'm also teaching you how to use Saturn to master your life. So that was my shameless plug for my September 17th webinar. You can find it in the show notes. Also, it's on my empoweringastrology.com website. So please register if you want to learn more about Saturn, one of my favorite planets in the solar system. Until then, thank you all for joining me. And even if you're joining me late, hello. Until next week. Bye.